The night had never felt so merciless. The wind sliced through the empty streets of Chicago, carrying flakes of snow that glittered like frozen tears beneath the flickering streetlights. A young woman sat on the edge of a cold sidewalk, her knees pulled tight against her chest, clutching a small girl wrapped in a worn-out blanket. Her lips trembled not only from the cold, but from the weight of defeat. Her name was Emily Carter, and tonight, like the many nights before, she had nowhere left to go. Beside her sat her daughter Lily, barely 5 years old, holding a faded teddy bear with one eye missing. Her cheeks were red, her hands tiny and pale. But she didn't complain. She never did. That made Emily's heart ache even more. She had promised her daughter a home, a warm bed, and safety. But promises, Emily realized, were easy to make and hard to keep when the world turned its back on you. Emily's eyes lifted to the sky as she whispered through trembling lips, "We'll sleep in the cold tonight, sweetheart. Mommy will keep you safe." She tried to sound brave, but her voice cracked. The weight of shame pressed down harder than the falling snow. Then from the other side of the street, a man stopped mid-step. He had just left his office, his breath fogging in the freezing air, his coat pulled tight against the wind. Ethan Miller was a construction project manager, 32, kind-hearted, but weary from the loneliness that came after losing his wife in an accident 3 years ago. He had learned to walk past life's chaos with his heart closed, his focus buried in work. But something about the sight of that woman and child in the snow stopped him cold. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of compassion, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel, Kindness Stories. Your support helps us spread hope through true-hearted stories like this one. Ethan hesitated, torn between logic and emotion. He had walked past dozens of homeless people before, whispering prayers in his mind but never stopping. But tonight felt different. The little girl looked up at him, her eyes wide and innocent, and in that instant, he saw his own daughter, lost too soon. The image pierced through his heart like a silent cry he could no longer ignore. He crossed the street slowly, his boots crunching in the snow, and knelt beside them. "Hey," he said softly, unsure how to begin. Emily startled, tightening her arms around Lily. "We're fine," she said quickly, her pride pushing through her fear. "Please, we don't need anything." But Ethan could see past her words, the bluish tint on her fingers, the exhaustion behind her eyes, the silent desperation of a mother trying to be strong. "No one should be out here in this cold," he murmured, his voice low, kind and firm. "Not you. Not her." Emily shook her head weakly. "Shelter's full," she whispered. "We tried." She looked away, ashamed. "We'll find somewhere else." But Ethan didn't move. He shrugged off his coat and placed it gently around her shoulders. "You're freezing," he said, ignoring her protests. "Come on, there's a diner just 2 blocks away. It's warm. I'll buy you both dinner." Emily hesitated. She'd been deceived before. Kindness wasn't always what it seemed, but something about his eyes told her this man wasn't pretending. They held no pity, only genuine concern. She looked at Lily, whose small voice finally broke the silence. "Mommy, can we go? Please?" That was enough. Emily nodded. They walked together through the snow, Ethan leading the way, holding an umbrella he had pulled from his briefcase. Inside the diner, warmth flooded their frozen hands. The waitress looked up but said nothing, only nodding as Ethan guided them to a corner booth. He ordered hot chocolate for Lily, soup for Emily, and coffee for himself. For the first time in weeks, Emily felt heat against her skin that didn't come from shivering. She watched Lily's face light up as she took her first sip of cocoa, her tiny hands clutching the mug like it was treasure. Tears stung Emily's eyes as she whispered a silent prayer of thanks. Ethan sat quietly, giving them space, pretending to read the menu, though his eyes never left them. "So," he finally said softly, "where are you staying tonight?" Emily lowered her gaze. "We don't have anywhere," she admitted. "We were at the shelter on Maple Street, but they said no more beds. I thought maybe the bus station, but they close early now." Her voice cracked again. "I'll find something." Ethan looked out the window at the swirling snow, and then back at her. "No," he said simply. "You're not sleeping out there." Emily blinked, startled. "You don't even know us." He smiled sadly. I know enough. You're a mother doing everything you can, and that little girl deserves a warm bed. That's all I need to know." She didn't know what to say. People didn't talk like that anymore. Not to her. He paid the bill, stood up, and extended his hand. "Come on, let's get you two out of this cold." Emily hesitated again, but the exhaustion in her bones made the decision for her. She took his hand. Ethan led them to his truck, helped Lily into the back seat, and turned up the heat as high as it would go. They drove in silence, the hum of the heater and the sound of falling snow filling the quiet. When they arrived, Emily's breath caught. His house wasn't huge or fancy. It was warm, simple, and home. A little Christmas wreath hung by the door, and a light glowed softly through the windows. Inside, the scent of cinnamon and pine filled the air. Ethan helped set out blankets on the couch, apologizing for the mess that wasn't really there. "You can sleep here tonight," he said. "Tomorrow we'll figure something out." "No pressure, I promise." Emily tried to protest again, but her voice failed. Her body finally gave in to warmth and safety. "Thank you," she whispered, her eyes glistening. Later that night, while Lily slept curled up with her teddy bear, Emily sat by the window, watching the snow fall outside. Ethan walked in quietly with 2 cups of tea. "You should rest," he said softly. Emily smiled faintly. "I'm afraid if I do, I'll wake up and realize this isn't real." Ethan sat beside her, his voice low. "Sometimes kindness feels like a dream because the world forgets it exists." They sat in silence for a while, the world outside muffled by snow. In that quiet, something began to shift. The next morning brought sunlight through the frosted glass and the smell of pancakes. Lily giggled in the kitchen as Ethan flipped a pancake in the air. Emily watched from the doorway, her heart swelling. It had been so long since she'd seen her daughter laugh like that. Ethan offered her a seat. "You don't have to say anything," he said gently. "Just eat." Over breakfast, Emily told him her story. She had once worked at a small bookstore downtown. Her husband, Jacob, had died in a car accident 2 years ago, leaving her with bills she couldn't pay and a daughter to raise alone. When the store closed, everything unraveled. Rent overdue, eviction notice, and then the streets. "I tried," she said, her voice trembling. "I really did." Ethan listened without interrupting, his heart breaking for her strength. "You don't owe me explanations," he finally said. "Everyone falls. What matters is who helps you stand again." Over the next few days, Emily and Lily stayed in the spare room. Ethan made calls quietly when they weren't looking, contacting shelters, community programs, even his own company's HR department. One afternoon, he came home with good news. "My company's hiring for administrative support," he told Emily. "It's part-time, but it's a start." Emily stared at him, speechless. You did that for me?" He smiled. "No, you did that for yourself." "I just opened a door." Tears welled in her eyes as she whispered, "You don't even know what you've done for us." Over time, laughter began to replace silence in that house. Lily grew attached to Ethan, running to greet him every evening. Emily started working again, slowly rebuilding her life. But what none of them expected was how much they began to need each other. One snowy evening, months later, Emily stood outside with Ethan, watching Lily make snow angels in the yard. She looked up at him, her eyes filled with warmth. "You saved us," she said softly. Ethan shook his head. "No, Emily. You just needed someone to remind you that you were never lost." As they stood there, the snow began to fall again, soft and slow, just like the way healing had found its way back into their lives. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel, Kindness Stories. Together, we can remind the world that one act of compassion can change a life forever. Before you go, tell us in the comments, do you believe that kindness can still save people in today's world? We'd love to hear your thoughts. That night, after tucking Lily into bed, Emily looked out the window once more. The same snow that once symbolized despair now looked like grace descending from the sky. Ethan joined her, standing quietly by her side. And when she whispered, "We would have slept in the cold that night," he smiled gently and replied, "Not while I'm here. Because sometimes God doesn't send angels with wings. He sends them wearing winter coats, standing in the snow, whispering warmth back into broken hearts.